Chris, thank you for coming in today, and tell me a little bit about what a secure deployment pipeline looks like, and what are the elements of a secure deployment pipeline?
Well, John, thank you so much for having me. I guess to really describe what a secure deployment pipeline looks like, let's just first describe what is a deployment pipeline. So in my world, a software delivery pipeline is everything that sits in between your version control system, your source code repository, your VCS, and your desired runtime environment, whatever that is. It could be cloud infrastructure, it could be a web application, it could be a mobile application. So your deployment, your delivery pipeline is everything that sits in between those two poles. And an insecure deployment pipeline is one where maybe the deployments themselves are still very much manual, maybe security checks are saved at the end, still a very manual process. And a secure deployment pipeline is very much the inverse of that. A secure deployment pipeline is one that's fully automated or that has the security and the compliance checks built in. And a secure deployment pipeline, I think, is one where developers can commit code, they can get work done, they can ship assets to production. They don't have to worry about security. The guardrails are up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great. And what would you say are the elements of a culture that embraces and values DevSecOps?
Yeah, great question. So fundamentally, I think a culture that values DevSecOps fundamentally is a culture that views security as an enabler of value, not a detractor. A culture that embraces DevSecOps is a culture that has security threaded throughout the entire software delivery lifecycle, and a culture that values DevSecOps. Very similar cultural traits to cultures that embrace DevOps and automation, cultures that are open and transparent, collaborative.
And what would you say are the fundamental problems that DevSecOps solves?
So fundamentally, when I think of DevSecOps, the problems it solves, very similar to the problems that DevOps solves with regards to software automation and delivery, but adding security and security automation into the mix. So very much the intersection of security automation, and DevOps. So the fundamental problem realized is the ability to bake in security, application security, into your entire development lifecycle end to end.
Mm-hmm. And what are some of the industry trends you see coming that might impact the deployment of secure pipelines?
Yeah, so largely speaking, I feel like a lot of industry trends and best practices, things like multi-factor authentication, single sign-on, we're going to see things like that continue to proliferate. I feel very strongly about the future of key management systems, technologies like HashiCorp Vault, I feel like are going to continue to make major waves in the industry. Things like short-lived ephemeral deployment credentials and tokens are going to continue to become more widespread. But most importantly, I feel like security is going to undergo a very similar transformation as did infrastructure with code. So security as code is going to do the same thing for security and security practices, very, very similar to what infrastructure as code did to infrastructure.
Yeah, and what would you say as an organization you should keep in mind regarding DevSecOps, just generally? What would you say?
Yeah. So first and foremost, it's important for all organizations, irrespective of industry or company size, to keep security top of mind. Security is vital for the longevity, for the success of any organization, and to not relegate security to a secondary activity. And then moreover, I think securing your deployment pipeline, securing your value streams is the best way, it's the best path forward.
Great. Well, thank you for your insights today, Chris.
Thank you so much, John.